Hello, welcome to the Case Closed podcast. I'm your host Ava, and today we'll be looking into a case that most true crime fans have already heard of. But if you haven't heard of it, buckle up because you are in for a wild ride. This case began in 1974, and updates to this case are still taking place as we speak. This is the case of the BTK Killer. This case began on January 15th, 1974, between 7 and 7:30 a.m. when 15-year-old Charlie Otero came home from school to his brother Danny, age 14, and sister Carmen, age 13, yelling for him to come to the bedroom. This is when he found his mother and father, Julie and Joseph Otero, and his 9-year-old brother Joseph Jr. Charlie's mother, Julie, appeared to be strangled to death, while his father had a plastic bag tied over his head and tied with a cord. Joseph Jr. was also killed in the same way. And if the beginning of this story hasn't been tragic enough for you, 11-year-old Josephine had been hung in the basement. This killer took souvenirs from the home, such as Mr. Otero's watch and radio. This killer took no precautions. In fact, he wanted attention from the police. After the Otero family's deaths, the Cake television station received a letter of admission for the Otero's deaths. The killer then continued taunting the police, this time calling the Wichita Eagle, leading them to another letter hidden in an engineering book in the public library. This letter contained a graphic description of the Otero family murders. In this letter, the killer stated, "I did it myself, with no one's help." And I'd just like to point out that this killer spelled no one, N-O-O-N-E-S. No spacing, bad grammar, and just very informal and sloppy writing. The killer also wrote in this letter, "The code words for me will be bind them, torture them, kill them, BTK." If you didn't find this guy psychotic enough for the murder of an entire family, then let this one sentence alone convince you. So at this point, not only are the police handling the panicked public while attempting to solve the murder of an entire family, but they are also being taunted by the killer himself. The next attack came on April 4th, 1974, to Catherine Bright. Catherine and her brother Kevin returned to Catherine's home. As they entered the home, the killer ran at them with a gun in hand and told them the same story as his previous victims, that he was a wanted criminal in need of money. The killer forced Kevin to tie his sister's hands and feet before taking Kevin into a separate room and attempting to tie him up as well. The killer was not successful in tying Kevin up, and the two got into a fight. Kevin almost took the gun from the killer before being shot in the head twice. After the shootings, the killer thought that Kevin was dead and returned to Catherine. Catherine also managed to put up a fight with the killer while he attempted to strangle her. When the killer realized that his tactics were not working, he switched from strangulation to stabbing. The killer managed to stab Catherine in the abdomen multiple times. While the killer was busy attacking Catherine, Kevin was able to escape by running to his car and driving off to find help. In the end, after multiple surgeries, Catherine Bright sadly died at the age of 21. Kevin, although in critical condition, did survive the attack. Information was later discovered that the killer broke into the Brights' home from the porch door and hid in Catherine's bedroom. There is also evidence suggesting that the killer anticipated Catherine to be home alone. This case began in the 1900s, and I am not a home security expert. Therefore, I do not know what security systems were available at this time. But today there are so many options for home security. If you don't already have security cameras, please let this case alone inspire you to make the investment. And although security cameras are great, always make sure to double check your locks. The next attack came on March 17th, 1977. 3 years after the attack on Catherine Bright, the killer struck again, this time taking the life of Shirley Van at just 24 years old. The killer had been roaming Shirley's neighborhood. The killer had apparently scouted another victim that he had met prior and planned on killing, although the killer decided to shift his plans when he realized that she wasn't home. Instead of attacking his original planned victim, the killer attacked another innocent woman, Shirley Vian. While the killer was scouting another victim, after realizing that his original victim wasn't home, the killer ran into Shirley Vian's 5-year-old son on the street. The killer pulled out an image of his own wife and kids and asked the child if he had seen them. The killer then followed the child home and shortly after knocked on the door, posing as a detective to gain access to the home. Once the killer got inside the home, he shut the blinds and turned off the TV. At this point, Shirley Vian came out of one of the rooms, surprised to see the killer. At this point, the killer then locked the 3 children into the bathroom at gunpoint before he began his attack on Shirley. Shirley was killed by strangulation with a cord around her neck while her children screamed from the bathroom. Due to the killer not having any connections to the people he would kill, this made it a lot harder for police to track down the killer. In the same year, on December 8, 1977, the killer took the life of his next victim, Nancy Fox. The killer attacked Nancy and then called police on a payphone to tell them, "You will find a homicide at 843 South Pershing." The killer gave the exact address of the homicide. Based on the research I have done, this interaction with police, as the killer was giving this information to the police, stated this information bluntly to the dispatcher. On January 31st, 1978, the killer sent in a poem to the Wichita Eagle titled, "Shirley Locks, Wilt Thou Be Mine?" The mail was originally thought to be a Valentine's poem and was forwarded to the Classified Ads Department. Following this, on February 10th, 1978, another letter was sent in by the killer that said, "How many people do I have to kill before I get my name in the paper or some national attention?" This time, the killer also added some name suggestions for himself. This letter once again proves that this killer was desperate for attention and wanted his case to be known. The next time we hear from this killer is on April 28, 1979, when Anna Williams comes close to becoming the next victim. The killer had been waiting in 63-year-old Anna Williams' home, anticipating for her to come home soon. But Anna did not come home in time, and I wish you could see me because I am putting air quotes around "in time," because it is as if this killer believes that everybody is working on his schedule. Anna didn't know how close she had come to death until another poem was mailed in with a letter stating, "Oh Anna, why didn't you appear?" Sent in with this letter was also some of Anna's personal items. On August 14th, 1979, police released the call reporting Nancy's death in hopes that the public can help solve this case. Following the release of the call, tips come flowing in. In 1984, a whole decade after this case began, a task force is devoted to the BTK crimes. The next killing was on April 27, 1985, on Marine Hedge. It was later discovered that she was one of the killer's neighbors, and after killing her, he took her to the church and then dumped her body into a remote ditch. The killer claimed to be proud of this killing in particular and called it Project Cookie. The killer later told the Wichita Eagle that he could be mean at times, but this is a quote from the killer himself. "On the other hand, I'm a nice guy. I'm a nice guy." The next attack came on September 16th, 1986. This attack was on Vicky. I am not sure how to say her last name, so I'm going to go ahead and spell it out for you guys. Wegerle. On September 16th, 1986, Bill, who I'm assuming is Vicky's husband, came home to his 2-year-old son alone. Shortly after this, he finds his wife Vicky dead in the bedroom. Although this case has now been solved, shortly after Vicky's death, Bill became the main suspect in this case. The next attack came on January 19th, 1991. This was the attack on Dolores Davis. Dolores was strangled to death and her body was found by a bridge 2 days after she had gone missing. Dolores's body was found by a public officer, and after this attack, BTK drops off the map. 13 years later, in January 2004, a piece was ran on the 30th anniversary of the BTK Killer. On March 19, 2004, the BTK Killer responds to the piece by sending in Vicky's missing driver's license. On May 5, 2004, BTK also sent in a puzzle to Cake TV with a fake ID and a word letter grid spelling out words like prowl, and at a later date, the police realized that this grid also spelled out R-A-D-E-R, Raider, around his street address 6220. On December 13th, 2004, the killer sent in another clue for the police. This time the killer left messages in many locations. One of the clues that the killer left to the police was a garbage bag with Nancy Fox's driver's license and a doll with a hood over her head and its arms tied. This garbage bag was left in a public park by the killer on January 25, 2005. After multiple more clues, a box was found in a pickup truck with a floppy disk. The police were instructed to run a newspaper with the ad message stating, "Rex, it will be okay." On January 28, 2005, the ad was run. On February 16, 2005, the police were able to prove that the disc contained information proving it was used by a dentist at the Christ Lutheran Church. The disc had also been run at the Park City Library. When the police ran a search on the church's history, the president's name popped up, revealing that the church president's name is Dennis Rader. Rader's DNA matched DNA that had been collected from the crime scenes. On February 25, 2005, Rader was arrested and he confessed to the crimes. The next day at Wichita City Hall, an audience gathered to applaud the arrest of Rader. On June 27, 2005, Rader pled guilty to 10 counts of first-degree murder. Following this, on August 18, 2005, Rader was sentenced to life in prison. On August 23, 2023, Rader is named a main suspect in 2 unsolved cases. On September 5, 2023, the police announced that Rader may have had another victim. This killing was from 1991 when a woman was bound and gagged in a barn. On March 21, 2024, Rader was cleared in one of the cases that he may have been a killer. The case he was cleared from was the Garber case. Rader's daughter wrote a book, A Serial Killer's Daughter, My Story of Hope, Love, and Overcoming. Now I will be sharing a little bit about the killer, Dennis Rader. Rader has claimed that in his youth, he killed animals. Also, from the time of being a child, Rader has been developing violent fantasies. In the 1960s, Rader served in the U.S. Air Force. He was married and had 2 children, as well as various jobs. Rader was a factory worker making camping equipment. He graduated from Wichita State University, where he studied criminal justice. Rader also worked for a home security company. He was active in church as well as a Boy Scout leader. Based on my research, many people have different opinions on how Rader truly acted. Some say he was a great guy and you never would have known that he acted completely normal. Others say he was violent and you could tell that something wasn't right. This case really demonstrates the fact that you don't really know anybody. This is a good reminder to always do your own background checks on people. And even if everything seems great, you'll never truly know what's going on inside of somebody's head. Apparently, Rader had designed his own kill kit, as he called it, which included guns, cords, knives, and tools for breaking and entering. Rader is now 78 and wheelchair bound. Rader has enough criminal charges to keep him in jail for many lifetimes. He will be in jail without the chance of parole for the rest of his life. Thank you for listening to the case of the BTK Killer. All of the resources that I used for the information in this episode will be linked below. Make sure to tune in next Wednesday for a new episode. And as always, case closed.